When Lewis Hamilton crossed the finish line at yet another race in 2025, there was something different in the air, not with the fans, not with the media, but with him. To the outside world, it looked like any other finish, another point for the team, another race weekend in the books. But behind the scenes, Hamilton had just uncovered something far more serious, something that went beyond cars, racing lines, or lap times. It was a discovery that would change everything he thought he knew about his new team Ferrari. It all began quietly, no accidents, no drama, just a document 40 pages long filled with technical data and internal strategies. A document that Hamilton was never supposed to see. No one knows exactly how it ended up in his hands, but once he read it, the silence around him was all the confirmation he needed. The Ferrari garage didn't rush to deny anything. They didn't even argue. They just went quiet. And in that silence, Lewis found his answer. This wasn't just a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was a plan carefully thought out, quietly executed and hidden in plain sight. When Hamilton joined Ferrari, it was supposed to be a historic moment. The greatest driver of his generation, perhaps of all time, teaming up with the most iconic name in Formula One. Fans cheered. Reporters praised the move. Analysts called it bold, exciting, and full of potential. For Lewis, it wasn't just about racing. It was about legacy. Wearing the red suit, driving for the team that defined F1 history, it was supposed to be his chance to write a new chapter, maybe even chase that long-awaited 8th world title. But dreams, as Lewis was starting to realize, can sometimes hide darker truths from the outside. Ferrari looked like a team reborn. 2 strong drivers, new leadership, and promises of equal treatment. Internally, though, things were starting to feel off. Little things at first, strange reactions during meetings, quiet pushback when Hamilton made suggestions, simulator sessions that didn't feel right. He noticed delays when asking for specific changes, and the constant promise that his requests would be reviewed later, a later that never really came. At first, he gave the benefit of the doubt. It was a new team, a new environment, and sometimes adjustments take time. But as preseason testing began, the issues became harder to ignore. His car felt different, not on paper, not in the data, but in his hands. It was heavier, slower, less responsive in the corners. When he asked about it, the engineer smiled and assured him everything was equal. But Lewis had been in the sport long enough to know the difference between equal and identical. Then came the missing telemetry. After one practice session where he felt surprisingly quick, he returned to review the data. It wasn't there. Not flagged, not under review, just gone. When he asked, he was told it was a sensing issue, that it would be restored. But it never was. As the days went by, more patterns began to appear. Simulator runs were being cut short. Requests for setup changes were denied or delayed. He wasn't being sabotaged in the traditional sense. There were no failures, no broken parts. Instead, it was something quieter, smarter, a system designed not to stop him outright, but to keep him just a little bit behind. Hamilton started connecting the dots. Every delay, every missed opportunity, every time his teammate, Charles Leclerc, received parts or setup options faster than him. It wasn't just about car performance, it was about control, about influence, about who held the power within the Ferrari camp, inside the team. Charles wasn't just another driver. He was the future. He had come up through the ranks with many of the engineers. They trusted him, understood him, and in many ways, they were loyal to him. They spoke in shorthand. They worked as one. It wasn't favoritism, it was familiarity, built over years. In contrast, Hamilton's side of the garage felt temporary. Engineers changed often. Staff didn't always seem aligned. He was respected, yes, but not trusted in the same way. Not part of the core. This imbalance became even more clear during strategy briefings. When Charles spoke, things changed quickly, adjustments were made, new approaches were considered. But when Lewis offered ideas, they were noted but rarely acted on. And if they were, the changes came much later, sometimes after the opportunity had already passed. It was subtle, quiet, but very real, and that's when Hamilton knew. This wasn't about misunderstanding. This was about structure. Ferrari wasn't just building a car, they were building a story, a narrative, and in that story, Charles was the lead, the hero, the star. Hamilton, despite all his titles and experience, was the backup plan, a symbol, someone to attract attention, bring headlines, and draw eyes to the team, but not someone they were truly building around. He didn't speak out, not publicly, but internally. He began pushing harder. He questioned more. He demanded answers. He started comparing every little change, every delay, every decision. And the more he looked, the clearer the picture became. Ferrari didn't need to sabotage Hamilton. They simply didn't support him the way they supported Leclerc. The instructions during races were another clear sign. When Hamilton was in a position to attack, he was often told to manage tires, cool the brakes, think long-term. But when Leclerc was the one chasing, the radio messages were different, encouraging, urgent, full of push, attack now, go for it, take the lap time. It was the same race, the same team, but a completely different tone. Even technical details weren't spared. Hamilton started feeling changes in the car mid-race. Brake bias slightly off, aero balance not quite right. Little things, nothing major, but enough to affect performance. Ferrari explained it away as fine-tuning, but Lewis wasn't convinced. These tweaks weren't helping, they were throwing him off. Adjustments he didn't ask for, but somehow always landed on his side of the garage. Off the track, things got even stranger. The Italian press, who had welcomed him with excitement and glowing headlines, slowly started changing their tone. Leclerc was described as the future, the next champion, Ferrari's golden boy. Hamilton was the wise veteran, the mentor, still learning, still adjusting. The difference was small, but the message was clear. Lewis knew how this worked. In Formula One, power isn't just about who drives the fastest. It's about who controls the story, the message, the direction of the team. And in that world, Hamilton was losing ground. But he didn't back down. Instead, he fought in the only way he knew how, on track. Every lap, every session, every practice run. He gave everything. He knew the team wasn't fully behind him, but he also knew that results couldn't be ignored. Quietly, he started beating expectations, finding speed, adjusting his style, pushing the car to its limits even when those limits were quietly being set against him. He began choosing his words more carefully in interviews, not revealing too much, not stirring public drama, but always making it clear he was watching. He was aware, and he wasn't going to be a silent passenger in someone else's story. Meanwhile, inside Ferrari, the pressure was growing. The more Hamilton pushed, the harder it became to manage the narrative. If he continued to perform, they couldn't hide it. And so the campaign became more careful, more controlled, less about slowing him down and more about shaping how people viewed his role. They didn't need to block him from winning, they just needed to make people believe he wasn't supposed to. Every missed podium was explained away, every strategy mistake chalked up to bad luck. But the truth was right there, in the fine print, in the silences, in the small things that kept adding up. Ferrari had a plan, a vision, and Lewis Hamilton, despite being one of the greatest drivers of all time, wasn't at the center of it. It hurt. Of course it did. This was supposed to be his comeback, his redemption, his chance to fight for title number 8 with the most legendary team in the sport. But instead, it was becoming something else, a test of patience, of mental strength, of political survival. As the season went on, the internal war at Ferrari stayed mostly hidden from the public eye. But for those watching closely, the signs were everywhere. Missed strategies, quiet disagreements, a driver who looked like he was pushing against the current, not with it. Lewis Hamilton wasn't just racing anymore. He was fighting for respect, for recognition, and for control of his own legacy. And he was doing it against a system that didn't need to beat him. It just needed to slow him down. The story of Hamilton at Ferrari is no longer just about speed or records. It's about silence. The kind of silence that surrounds a driver when he's being pushed aside. The kind that hides behind polite answers and professional excuses. The kind that slowly rewrites a legacy one missed decision at a time. But if anyone knows how to fight through that silence, it's Lewis Hamilton. He's been doubted before. He's faced unfair treatment.